Your next grocery trip could be one wrong choice away from a stomach-churning disaster. That glossy salmon behind the glass. It might be days past safe. The fillet that smells okay. It could be laced with bacteria invisible to the eye and deadly to the gut. In a recent consumer safety report, nearly 1 in 5 grocery store fish samples were found to be mislabeled. And worse, over 40% of seafood counters tested were holding fish at temperatures above the legal safety threshold. So how to spoiled, unsafe, and sometimes even rotten fish still end up in your cart. Priced like premium, labeled fresh. Why are trusted grocery chains repeatedly failing to protect shoppers from one of the most fragile and high-risk foods on the shelf? Tonight's dinner might look clean and wholesome, but are you sure it isn't a bacterial time bomb waiting to strike? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth G's personal. And today we will reveal top 5 big chains you should never buy fish there. The answers may shock you, and the real reason why so many grocery stores are failing at fish. We will break it down in the end. Number 1. Trader Joe's. At first glance, Trader Joe's seems like the kind of store you can trust with your eyes closed. There's a charm to its cozy aisles, quirky signage, Hawaiian-shirted staff, and catchy product names that instantly give you the feeling of warmth and reliability. For older Americans who appreciate attentive customer service and a neighborly vibe, Trader Joe's often feels like a refreshing break from the cold sterility of bigger chains. But when it comes to seafood, especially frozen fish, this feel-good atmosphere hides some deeply troubling truths. Let's get to the heart of it: mislabeling. Multiple studies have shown that some of Trader Joe's most popular frozen fish products, including what's marketed as wild-caught mahi-mahi and sockeye salmon, are often not what they claim to be. In one well-respected investigation by an ocean advocacy group, over 20% of fish tested from Trader Joe's stores were not the species listed on the label. That's not a small margin. That means 1 out of every 5 bags could be misleading you right from the freezer shelf. This isn't just a mistake. It's a breach of trust. For seniors who may be monitoring their diets closely due to health concerns, this kind of misinformation is more than frustrating. It's potentially dangerous. Think about it. When a person picks up a package labeled wild-caught salmon, they expect a product with a specific nutritional profile higher in omega-3s, leaner, and typically lower in contaminants. But if that product is actually farm-raised trout or another species entirely, the difference can be significant. A mother in California once purchased what she believed to be wild salmon, only to discover through third-party testing that she had actually bought farm-raised trout cheaper, fattier, and more likely to harbor parasites if not handled carefully. The consequences of these substitutions can be serious, especially for individuals with allergies or dietary restrictions. Eating mislabeled fish could trigger unexpected allergic reactions or expose someone to contaminants they were trying to avoid, but it doesn't end with the wrong label. Behind the scenes, handling practices at Trader Joe's also raise red flags. According to a former employee, the seafood section is often treated as an afterthought. Workers, tasked with juggling multiple roles, frequently neglect to monitor the temperature of the fish throughout the day. During restocking, it was reportedly common for fish to be left out for as long as 20 minutes before being returned to refrigeration. For anyone familiar with food safety, this isn't just careless, it's dangerous. As that same employee put it, 20 minutes is plenty of time for bacteria to start throwing a party. Customers have voiced their own concerns as well. Some have opened frozen cod packages to find a clean, fresh smell. Others, buying the same product from the same shelf, were overwhelmed by an odor more fitting for a dumpster behind a fish market. This kind of inconsistency points to deeper supply chain issues. Trader Joe's may brand itself with clever packaging, but many of their frozen seafood items come from the same lower-tier suppliers used by less reputable stores. One variety of frozen shrimp, for example, was linked to a supplier whose practices had been banned in several European countries due to violations of health regulations. So what does this all mean for older shoppers who value trust, quality, and safety? Simply put, Trader Joe's might not be the best place to buy your fish. No matter how friendly the staff may be or how cheerful the packaging looks, what matters most is what's inside, and if you can't trust that, then it's time to reconsider where your seafood dollars are going. Number 2. Walmart. When it comes to buying seafood, There are certain expectations we all carry. You want freshness, you want safety, and most of all, you want peace of mind knowing your dinner won't make you sick. But if you're shopping at Walmart for fish, it's time to reconsider. Because behind the bright lighting and wide aisles, Walmart's seafood section is hiding a series of problems that no shopper, especially older Americans, should have to deal with. In fact, among major grocery retailers, Walmart leads the pack in all the wrong ways when it comes to seafood safety. Let's begin with temperature control, a basic but absolutely essential factor in preserving the safety of raw fish. According to independent tests conducted in 2022, fish displays at several Walmart locations were found to be holding temperatures between 42 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's well above the federal safety guideline of 40 degrees. To some, that might sound like a small margin. But when it comes to raw seafood, that 2 to 10 degree difference is enough to turn what should be a safe meal into a breeding ground for dangerous bacteria. A food scientist even compared it to leaving sushi in your car on a sunny day, then pretending it's still fresh. Except at Walmart, you're paying full price for that risky experience, and the fish themselves are telling you something if you're paying attention. Customers across the country have reported buying packages with milky, cloudy liquid, grayish or brownish edges, or that telltale low-tide smell that smacks you in the face when you open the refrigerator. These are not subtle signs. These are red flags waving in the cold breeze of a malfunctioning seafood case. Another issue is sourcing. Walmart imports a significant portion of its seafood from massive processing facilities overseas, often in countries where inspection standards fall short of U.S. regulations, and that gap in oversight has led to some alarming consequences. In one case, shrimp imported from a foreign supplier was later recalled after tests revealed contamination with antibiotics that are banned in the United States. But the recall didn't happen until the media started reporting it by that time. Hundreds of shoppers had already purchased and consumed the product. Even the frozen section, often thought of as a safer bet, has its own set of problems. One former Walmart employee revealed that frozen fish was sometimes allowed to partially thaw during transport or stocking, then refrozen without any notification or proper procedures. This isn't just a matter of freezer burn or odd texture. He explained that once fish thaws, bacteria can begin multiplying inside the flesh. Refreezing locks that bacteria in, waiting for the next unsuspecting customer to cook it maybe not thoroughly enough and suffer the consequences. He said you could tell which ones had been thawed and refrozen because the ice looked off thin, flaky, unnatural. Then there's the packaging. Walmart's seafood products are often sealed and thin, vacuum-packed plastic, which doesn't offer much defense against punctures. One small tear during transport, bagging, or even just being jostled in your cart can lead to leaking. That leaking can cause fish juice to spread across your other groceries, soaking into fruits, vegetables, bread, or anything else nearby. Several customers have reported opening their bags at home only to find fish liquid coating everything from strawberries to sandwich rolls. It's not just disgusting, it's a clear health hazard. You might think that with their size and resources, Walmart would do better. But when it comes to seafood, they're cutting corners in places where it counts most. Inconsistent temperatures, risky sourcing, unsafe refreezing practices, and poor packaging. All of these add up to one conclusion. Walmart's seafood section isn't just disappointing, it's downright dangerous. Number 3, Kroger. When it comes to seafood, Kroger paints a picture of freshness, quality, and care, with their sprawling displays of glistening fillets and cheerful signs claiming responsibly sourced. It's easy to let your guard down, but what lies beneath that polished exterior tells a very different story, one that should give every shopper, especially older Americans, serious pause before tossing that shrimp or salmon into their cart. Because Kroger's seafood department has a long, well-documented history of food safety violations, sloppy handling, and a troubling lack of transparency. In fact, it's not just disappointing, it's dangerous. Let's start with thawing practices, where Kroger has repeatedly fallen short. An internal memo leaked in 2021 revealed that some stores were defrosting frozen fish by placing it in standing water, rather than under proper refrigeration. It might be a faster method, but it's also a method that's begging for bacterial growth. A food safety expert compared it to leaving your tilapia in a warm bathtub for a few hours. That image isn't just unappetizing, it's downright hazardous. When you defrost fish in stagnant water, you're essentially turning it into a petri dish for harmful microbes. It's not just lazy, it's reckless. Local health departments have taken notice. 2. In-store audits of Kroger seafood counters have uncovered repeated violations, ranging from cross-contamination to improper labeling. One particularly disturbing inspection revealed that cooked shrimp was being stored directly next to raw fish without any barrier between them. That is one of the most basic principles of food safety, and Kroger missed it like a student showing up for an exam they didn't study for. Another audit reported thawed fish being left in metal pans with no ice for hours. When questioned, one store manager shrugged and said, "It still feels cold to me." That's not food science. That's guesswork. And it's a gamble no one should take with seafood. What makes all this worse is Kroger's opaque sourcing practices. Unlike other chains that openly list catch areas or processing regions on their packaging, Kroger's labels are vague at best. One box of frozen Atlantic cod might come from a clean, regulated fishery in Norway, or it might be farmed in a chemical-laced pond in inland China. There's often no way to tell. They slap on terms like responsibly sourced. But here's the hard truth: that phrase has no legal definition. It's marketing language, not a guarantee. It could mean they follow high standards, or it could mean nothing at all. And for older Americans, many of whom are managing health conditions, relying on fixed incomes, and shopping carefully, this lack of clarity is unacceptable. If you're trying to avoid fish raised in polluted waters or fish exposed to banned chemicals, should the label help you do that at Kroger? It won't. You're left to guess. And when it comes to what's on your plate, guesswork is the last thing anyone should be paying for. Inconsistent storage temperatures, careless thawing, cross-contamination, and vague sourcing add up to a deeply flawed seafood department. What you see in Kroger's display case may look clean and well lit, but looks can be deceiving. Behind the scenes, there's a breakdown in standards and accountability that puts customers at risk. So if you're someone who values quality, honesty, and above all, safety, you might want to skip the seafood aisle at Kroger entirely, because when a store can't guarantee what's in the package, how it was handled, or where it came from, it's not just a bad buy, it's a risk you don't have to take. Number 4. Safeway. If you thought Kroger's fish in a hot tub approach was the bottom of the barrel, brace yourself, because what's going on behind the seafood counter at Safeway might just sink your expectations even lower. Safeway, a chain often perceived as a more premium grocery option, has made repeated headlines over the years for questionable meat practices. But its seafood department takes the controversy to a whole new level, one marinated in hygiene issues, deceptive labeling, and an almost unbelievable disregard for accountability. What's being marketed as fresh and responsibly sourced could be, quite literally, a science project gone wrong. Let's start with the labels. In 2020, a detailed investigation uncovered that Safeway stores in 3 western states were openly selling previously frozen fish as fresh, with no mention anywhere that the fish had ever been frozen. That's not a small oversight, it's a dangerous one. Once frozen fish is thawed, its shelf life becomes much shorter, and it needs to be stored properly, sold quickly, and labeled clearly. Failing to disclose that the fish was previously frozen doesn't just mislead customers, it puts them at risk. In stores where fish is left to sit in undercooled displays, sometimes for hours, the situation goes from misleading to outright unsafe. Customers have reported fish sweating inside thin plastic packaging, trapped in their own moisture like they're prepping for a sauna session. The odor has been described as a mix of wet cardboard and rotting seaweed, not exactly the smell you want wafting from your fridge. Complaints about salmon in particular have surged, with some shoppers saying the fish looks fine on the outside, only to find a slimy texture and strong ammonia smell when they open the package. That ammonia scent is a telltale sign the fish has begun to decompose. That's not fresh, that's spoiled. And while the product itself is questionable, the handling practices might be worse. Former Safeway employees have admitted that fish past its prime is sometimes repackaged, spruced up, and placed back on display. One employee candidly shared, "We just sprayed lemon juice on the fillets. It kills the smell long enough to sell it." Let that sink in rather than removing spoiled fish from the shelf. Staff members were masking decay with citrus. Lemon juice doesn't reverse spoilage, it only covers it long enough to reach the checkout lane. After that, it's your problem. Cross-contamination is another huge red flag. Safeway Seafood counters regularly handle multiple types of seafood, from raw fillets to ready-to-eat shrimp cocktails. But in a 2021 Health Department audit, inspectors found that Safeway employees were using the same cutting boards, knives, and even gloves across raw and cooked products. One inspector described the setup as a cross-contamination hazard with a price tag. In practical terms, that means the shrimp cocktail you bought for a weekend lunch may have come with a surprise splash of raw tilapia juice, and no, that's not a dipping sauce. That's an invitation to foodborne illness. If all this weren't enough, Safeway has also been suspiciously quiet when it comes to food recalls. During a major frozen shrimp recall in 2019 due to potential listeria contamination, other chains took clear. Visible action. They placed signs at store entrances and near checkout counters to alert customers. But Safeway, they tucked the notice away on a little-known section of their website that no average customer would ever visit unless they were actively searching for recalls. A 2022 survey revealed that fewer than 10% of Safeway customers were even aware of the recall, despite thousands having bought the affected product, for a chain that positions itself as a higher-end grocery experience. Safeway's seafood practices are surprisingly careless. Their approach to freshness is vague, their transparency almost non-existent, and their hygiene standards deeply inconsistent. The entire seafood section feels less like a place to shop and more like a gamble, and when you're dealing with raw fish, that's not a risk worth taking, especially not when better, safer alternatives are only a few aisles or streets away. Number 5. Meyer. It might come as a surprise, especially if you're a loyal Midwest shopper, but when it comes to seafood, Meyer is far from the dependable name it strives to be, with bright aisles, friendly employees, and a reputation for cleanliness. Meyer feels like a trustworthy place to shop, but just behind the polished presentation and well-stocked shelves, their seafood department is battling serious issues with freshness, labeling accuracy, supply chain transparency, and basic food safety practices. And while Meyer may have earned customer loyalty in other departments, when it comes to fish, they're falling short in ways that every shopper, especially older Americans, should know about. Let's begin with freshness. Meyer sources a significant portion of its seafood from large-scale distributors that prioritize efficiency and shelf life over quality. These suppliers often employ quick thawing systems to move frozen fish rapidly into stores. While this may keep the supply chain running smoothly, it leaves the product with a razor-thin margin before spoilage. A 2023 consumer report found that Meyer's pre-packaged fresh fish had one of the shortest usable shelf lives among all major grocery chains. In a blind test of 30 fish fillets purchased from various Meyer stores, half were classified as borderline spoiled within just 48 hours of purchase. This was despite labels promising best by dates up to 5 days away. One expert put it bluntly, the label said 5 days. The smell said, throw it out now. Even Meyer's frozen fish isn't off the hook. In blind taste tests, popular products like Meyer's breaded fish sticks and fillets ranked near the bottom for both flavor and texture. Testers described the products as soggy, overly fishy, bland, or unpleasantly spongy. Several even compared them to microwavable sponges, a comparison that might sound humorous until you remember these products are often marketed as child-friendly meals. And children, as health experts often point out, are particularly susceptible to foodborne illnesses, especially those caused by improperly stored or handled seafood. The issues don't stop there. According to a whistleblower at a Michigan location, seafood training at Meyer is minimal, just a single 15-minute walkthrough that covers how to rotate fish and mark expiration dates. No follow-up training, no routine temperature checks, no mandatory refreshers. The standard was clear: if it looks okay, it gets stocked. That might suffice for dry goods like cereal. But with seafood, appearances can be dangerously deceiving. Temperature monitoring, an absolute cornerstone of seafood safety, is another major failure point. A report from a consumer safety advocacy group revealed that in over 20 Meyer locations tested, nearly 40% had seafood displays operating above the recommended temperature threshold. The worst instance involved tilapia being held at 48 degrees Fahrenheit for hours with no ice, no refrigeration alarms, and no staff intervention. Warm, plastic-wrapped fish left sweating in a case no one's checking isn't dinner. It's a breeding ground for bacteria. Packaging and labeling are also causes for concern. Some Meyer stores use cloudy, fogged-up plastic wrap that makes it nearly impossible to inspect the appearance of the fish inside. Others slap on generic wild-caught labels without specifying where the fish was caught or processed. Even more troubling are labels that read, "Product of multiple countries," a vague designation that's been seen on packages of cod, pollock, and flounder. This lack of traceability not only frustrates shoppers, it also raises serious questions about sourcing standards. Instead of knowing where your fish came from, you're left wondering if it took a confusing and untraceable global journey before ending up in your cart. And the problems go deeper, literally. Meyer's supply chain includes vendors flagged in environmental audits for unsustainable fishing practices and questionable water quality management. A 2022 environmental review revealed that some of Meyer's frozen seafood was sourced from overfished regions or farms known to have poor water filtration and sanitation standards. As a result, fish from these sources may contain higher levels of pollutants, including mercury and microplastics. This is particularly troubling for species like tuna and swordfish, which already carry higher contaminant risks. You thought you were buying clean, safe fish for your family. But in reality, your fillet might have more in common with a chemistry experiment than a nutritious meal. And in a grocery store that prides itself on trust, that's a betrayal you can smell and taste. Why grocery store fish is so often unsafe by now. It's fair to wonder, how did seafood end up being such a weak spot in so many grocery chains? The answer is surprisingly simple. Fish is fragile. Of all the proteins sold in stores, fish spoils the fastest, absorbs surrounding odors, and carries the highest risk of contamination when handled improperly. And the scariest part, most of the warning signs are invisible, unlike beef or chicken, where you can often see or smell spoilage. Bad fish can look completely normal if it's vacuum sealed or rinsed before display. It might even smell fine, but once you cook it, or worse, eat it, the truth comes out. And at that point, it's too late. The biggest danger is that most shoppers don't know what spoiled fish really looks like. Meat turns brown, milk curdles, lettuce wilts, but fish. It can sit in your fridge looking perfectly safe while bacteria multiply inside. Just a few hours at the wrong temperature can turn it from safe to dangerous. And there's no label that tells you that happened. Fish needs constant care, from the moment it's caught to the moment it lands on your plate. That means fast transport, steady refrigeration, clean handling, and honest labeling. But many grocery chains treat it like just another item. They pack it in plastic, write a best buy date, and hope for the best. That's not good enough. Many stores also mislead with marketing. Labels like wild caught or sustainably sourced sound safe, but they don't speak to how the fish was handled. A perfectly sourced fish is still unsafe if it sat warm too long. Some stores even skip key info like previously frozen to make products seem fresher than they are. Others use phrases like fresh packed to mask the fact the fish was thawed days ago. Cross-contamination is another overlooked threat. In many stores, the same staff handles raw fish, cooked shrimp, and ready-to-eat seafood, often with the same gloves or knives. One worker admitted to slicing raw and cooked products back to back, just wiping the blade in between. That's not food safety, that's a gamble. Sure, shoppers have a role to play keeping fish cold, storing it fast, but if the product is already borderline when it's handed to you, your window for safe handling is almost gone. You think you're making dinner, but you could be serving a bacterial trap. The truth is, fish is one of the most mishandled foods in the grocery industry, and most people won't know until it makes them sick. By then, the damage is done. Smart choices at the seafood counter. So, what can you do to protect yourself? Start with the basics. Know what fresh fish looks, feels, and smells like. Smells. The flesh should be firm to the touch and bounce back when pressed, never mushy or slippery. Its color should be bright and natural, not faded, gray, or dull. If the fish is sealed in plastic, check the liquid inside. Clear is good, milky or cloudy. That's a red flag. And most importantly, follow your nose. If it smells like low tide or rotting seaweed, don't hesitate. Walk away. No bargain is worth that risk. Second, ask questions. Where was this fish caught? Was it previously frozen? When was it thawed? A trained employee should know the answers. If they look confused or dodge the question, that tells you more than any label could. The best stores make seafood handling a priority. The worst ones rely on plastic wrap and polite smiles to cover the gaps. Next, keep perspective on price. A cheap deal can cost you more in the long run, especially if spoiled fish leaks into your groceries and ruins the rest of your cart. On the flip side, paying more doesn't guarantee quality either. We've already seen what high-end chains can get away with mislabeled salmon, repackaged rejects, and sad, soggy fish sticks that should never leave the freezer. Above all, stop assuming the store has done its part. Many do not. Seafood safety isn't always top of mind in busy, high-volume chains. Bacteria don't wait for a quiet moment. They grow when fish sits too long, too warm, or too ignored. Your best defense is to stay alert. Choose stores that specialize in seafood or have dedicated staff behind the counter. Look for clear labels, good refrigeration, and people who know what they're selling. And if all else fails, skip the fish and go for something safer that day. Because not every fillet on ice belongs on your plate. Some should have stayed in the sea. Now that you know what to look out for, maybe it's time to rethink what's really in your cart. Stay curious, stay cautious, and if you found this helpful, you know where to find the next truth on your plate.